Gokcen. Ms. Gokcen is a cyber risk analyst, data protection consultant, and European Commission Expert Evaluator. She brings with her over 16 years of experience in information security in various domains such as cryptography, system security engineering, compliance, and cybersecurity. Gokcen began her career as a crypto specialist at the National Research Institution, Turkey. She has participated in R&D projects including EID, Smart Card OS, satellite and EU projects. Since 2012, she has been actively working as an expert evaluator on cryptology, data privacy, computer networks, and information security in the European Union H2020 program. After years of independent consultancy on KVKK, Turkish Data Protection Law, GDPR and ISO27001, she joined NormShield Cyber Security in 2019 as cyber risk and compliance analyst. Currently, her research interests include NLP and deep learning techniques for security compliance. Gokcen has master's degree from Bosphorus City Computer Engineering. She is a CISSP and also holds on ISO27001 auditor certification in information security. So happy to have introduced you, and over to you, Ms. Gokcen.
Well, first, let me thank you for inviting me to this amazing conference. It's an honor for me to share the stage, the virtual stage, with all these wonderful ladies in cybersecurity. As my host told, I'm Gokcen. I work for NormShield Cyber Security, which is a security rating service and cyber risk assessment platform with an outside-in approach. And I started my career in cryptography at National Research Institute and switched to cyber domain over the years. And I provided consultancy on data protection law, Turkish data protection law at some point in my career. And starting from 2012, I also work as an independent expert evaluator for European Commission. So I'm a woman in tech, in particularly crypto and cybersecurity, which has an eyebrow-raising effect on most of the people, not just men. Because for years, cybersecurity has been thought of as a man's job, just like the stereotype associated with programmers. Contrary to the popular belief, computer programming was for a long time a women's field. Back then, many people regarded computer programming as a normal career option for young women, and that was as late as the 60s. I'd like to quote from what Dr. Grace Hopper, the US Navy mathematician and Rear Admiral, what she told to a reporter. She describes programming as just like planning a dinner, and women are naturals at computer programming. Not the case that managers valued women more than they do now. Computer programming was clearly seen by them as a simple work. Software development is far less important than hardware development. What happened then? Well, male programmers managed to take this work from the category of women's work. They formed professional associations and prevented women's hiring. Today, unfortunately, the same stereotype exists in cybersecurity. Some today try to attract women to this field with the argument that cybersecurity positions require interpersonal skills and do not require software coding skills. Well, it's a bona fide discourse, but is that the right argument of attracting women to cybersecurity? Of course, no. All these amazing women here are a proof of this with their hardcore cybersecurity skills in pen testing, in red teaming, and in the defense side as well, and in the programming as well. And I believe these events are great for inspiring young women to begin a career in cybersecurity. Well, with all this being said, let's move on to our topic. So, we're in an ever-changing cyber risk landscape. We face many questions on a daily basis and on different levels. So what's on the mind of an IT security person? What's wondering? An IT security person has some challenges on a daily basis. Is my data safe on cloud? Are there any corporate credentials leaked? Has there any phishing sites been active recently? Has someone clicked on a dangerous link? And what's this vulnerability about? Have my certificates expired? And is my encryption strong enough? Of course, these are the questions on the technical level. As you go upwards, the language changes from the CVE level, from the vulnerability level, to the business level, and the language of business, where you constantly leverage risk terminology. So the questions to what is my reputation in digital world? What is my overall risk? And eventually, what is my compliance level? What about my vendors in my supply chain? What is the risk associated with a vendor in the entire supply chain? Are there any sector-based threats recently? Is my security investments paying off? So these are the questions on an executive's mind. Well, businesses exist to make money in the first place. They're not there for security. I remember from my consultancy days chatting with CEOs about the security holes, about the information security risk, and eventually about their compliance level to regulations. Most of them were not interested in listening to the vulnerabilities, to the CVEs. They're more acquainted with the risk language. So, what is risk? Before delving into the cyber risk, let's now take a look at this picture. This image has been circulating on social media. Perhaps it's a good start to understand the risk. Here, the risk conveys the idea, the impact of the injury that this stick figure is likely to have. As you can see, the thread of this hole, which kind of define the injury level once this sticky fails. I'd like to call it sticky, by the way. Of course, some key elements are missing in this picture. For example, probability. We're inherently thinking that the probability is related to the width of the hole, but perhaps sticky is a good jumper, and he's gonna make it whatever the width of the hole is. What about the controls in place? Does he have any knee pads, arm pads? Does he have any protection already? And what is Sticky's risk appetite? Maybe this is an important mission and it's the only way to get to a specific place. And what are the assets at stake? Here it is obviously the Sticky and his health, but how does it matter to the person or organization that assigns this Sticky? Well, we as risk management professionals consider these parameters on a daily basis in the decision making, in the risk management process. So having talked a little bit about the risk, let's now talk about cyber risk. Cyber risk is any risk from the digital world, including damage to the reputation of the company, including financial loss, operational disruption. It's actually a negative event resulting in a loss. It includes unauthorized access to information systems, unintentional or accidental breaches, and also some IT factors such as poor configuration and poor integrity on IT assets, with the most common threats being malware, phishing, man-in-the-middle Trojans, ransomware. And by the way, starting with the pandemics, phishing has been a common denominator in almost every attack. Okay, We all know the threats and other parameters, then how to estimate the risk to come up with a number. The question is how to calculate the risk in such a landscape. And perhaps our ultimate goal is to quantify it. Obviously, we need data because we know parameters and there are methodologies out there. So we need data to come up with a number to quantify risk. Risk is about estimation, so it's about the unknown known, but we always have the ability to learn from past events and use that in future predictions. So with that in mind, let's take a look at some recent cyber events and cyber attacks so that we can draw a methodology to come up with a number that indicates the risk. Let's start with Twitter. So the latest Twitter hack was an attack that started with the cryptocurrency Binance Twitter account. It then spread to other accounts such as Apple, Uber, Elon Musk's account, Bill Gates' account, and US presidential candidate Joe Biden's account. From the accounts of people from these accounts, a campaign was launched saying that we will give you twice the amount of Bitcoin you sent to us. What was the toll? More than $118,000 were sent to several Bitcoin accounts. What were the assets? Well, blue verified accounts were compromised, as well as an internal Twitter employee tool was accessed in an unauthorized manner. And the threat was getting access to Twitter's internal tools. So here we have the monetary value where we're close to quantifying the impact to some level. Another cyber event was the Amka breach. The breach was really sensational in the healthcare industry. So is Amka a healthcare company? No, it's a collections vendor. A third party, basically third party to the healthcare industry. What was the threat? A hacker group compromised Amka's IT network and stole payment information, which they later put up for sale on a black market. What was the impact? Amka had to take a $2.5 million loan to cover the expenses to this cyber event. And eventually, Amka filed for bankruptcy. That was the impact. The assets, well, 24 million patient records were compromised as a result of the hack. And these were the records that were collected at healthcare institutions, not at Amka. Another sensational cyber event was the attack towards British Airways. It led to a record-breaking GDPR fine, although not final, but it's $230 million. It was due to hackers implanting malicious code on the payment portal of British Airways website. It eventually compromised 500,000 customers' payment information, and that were the assets at stake. Last but not the least was the largest data breach in US history. It was an attack towards a supermarket chain named Target. Hackers gained access Target's portal, Target's servers, through a third party, and that was an air conditioning vendor of Target. They got access to the stolen credentials at that third party and exploited several other weaknesses on Target's systems, and they got eventually access to the customer data. So it affected about 110 million customers' records. What was the impact? Target faced an $18.5 million settlement to pay for the loss to pay for the loss of the customers, and this was as a result of class action suits. Not just that, after the breach became public, many customers canceled their red cards and stopped shopping at that retail corporation. So as seen here in the brand index chart, the customer perception took a 54% dip in the year following the data breach, and so it could not get as good as its reputation still in 2019. So what do we have? Well, we have quite a data as a result of each cyber event. The assets, for example, the customer records, whether it's payment data, health data, or social media accounts, we know the affected assets. We also know the losses, the fines from data protection authorities, the settlement costs as a result of class action suits. We know the notification expenses. And also we know the frequency of these cyber breaches. They're all recorded, which industry, which geography, which sector. We're really close to quantification of the risk as lessons learned from the past. So as a risk management professional, myself leverages cost of a data breach report quite often. That is a joint report of IBM Security and Ponemon. It has all the cost items disintegrated by industry, geography, and also you can disintegrate the overall cost items of a breach into lost business cost, detection escalation, notification response. So these are really helpful in quantification of the cyber risk as lessons learned from the past. We also make use of open fair methodology in my company in quantification of cyber risk. Other methodologies are also welcome. So in the end, we can come up with some critical answers to business critical questions in the cyber landscape. What threats am I facing that are likely to create a cyber risk? What is the risk associated with each threat? What shall be the investment? And what is the overall security posture in my supply chain? Am I going to be hacked through my vendors, just as in the case of Amka or Target? And what is the weakest link in my supply chain? How am I going to make decisions in the due diligence process? So that am I going to enter into a business contract with that specific vendor? So a risk-based approach, and a particularly quantified risk approach, will enable you to answer all questions in the new cyber landscape. It will empower you with explainable metrics and decision-making processes in the risk management and in the business processes. Well, thank you all for joining this session and listening to me. I hope each of you have some takeaways and valuable insights from this presentation. Thank you again.
Hi. Hi, Gokcen.
Hi.
Is there an echo? I think I can hear a bit of an echo. Do you have tabs open by any chance?
Excuse me?
Do you have two tabs open?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna.
Okay.
Okay.
There's still a bit of an echo coming.
So
just close the other open tab. Keep this one open.
So I have just closed the other tab. Okay.
The other one, yeah. Yeah, I think it should be okay now. No, there's still an echo. Anyway. Okay. So we have a question now. According to you, do you see non-IT cyber risk management?
It's actually echoing. Could you please write in the chat window if there are any questions. I can't hear you.
Okay.
Well.
I put the question in the chat box.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, they are reluctant to. So the question is, according to you, do you see non-IT sectors investing in cyber risk management? Well, currently, as far as I chat with the risk management professionals, I chat with the CIOs, it depends on the geography, it depends on the industry, it depends on the awareness level of the company and the executives. So they were reluctant like a few years ago, but with the storm of new regulations like GDPR and, for example, California Consumer Privacy Act, new cybersecurity regulations in US and also in the European Union, the company executives have begun to be more enthusiastic about investment in cybersecurity. It's more like nowadays it's regulation driven. So the regulations are critical in forcing companies to invest in cybersecurity and cyber risk management. There are a lot. Recently, there are many attacks. There have been many attacks to other sectors like retail sector, shipping sector. These sectors were not enthusiastic like 5 years ago or 10 years ago to invest in cybersecurity, but with the storming attacks, for example, ransomwares, phishing attacks, and of course, with the regulations now in the force, they're more enthusiastic and they're more aware about cybersecurity, and they have begun to invest in cybersecurity.
Okay. I think there's still a bit.
Echo. Oh.
No. Okay, so I think we're done with the questions. Thank you so much, for giving us your time on a Sunday. Pleasure having you.
I thank you. Yeah. I thank you, all the guys. Okay, have a great day.
Thank you so much. Please be safe. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.